long-term maintenance, in issues like that are a benefit to the electric fund.
One more thing, does anybody know, maybe Aaron's question, maybe Victoria's, how many inquiries there have been in years past from businesses who were interested in three-phase power, but because it wasn't available, didn't proceed with projects?
I can think of the market.
Only two in that particular block.
Well, the market and main stage both would like 3-phase, and then the hotel will need 3-phase.
Believe so.
Probably. I mean, for redundancy's sake, I would think they would. In case,
Business that's on at Fourth and Broadway, right around the corner
Yeah.
from.
Flappy's
Goodson.
have-
Oh, he's asked about 3-phase.
which one? Flappy.
Goodson, what?
But that's it. I don't think anyone else has inquired about it, like with the new development. But, I think those are the only ones I've heard about since I've been here.
Okay.
Trustee Browning asked one of my questions, which was about undergrounding. And, undergrounding has more benefits than just that. There's, it's greater efficiency and helps mitigate wildfire danger. It's a pretty good thing to do. So, and I know we're doing it bit by bit. For those of us who might not have a deep understanding about how electricity works, myself included most of the time, could you explain the difference between 2-phase power and 3-phase power?
Well, I'm no expert either, and it's 1 phase.
It's 1 phase and 3-phase.
Sorry.
It's 1 phase, yeah.
Oh, really?
You wanna explain
It's phases, so power
it?
is the
Come up
wave.
here so the camera.
It'd
Yeah.
be 3 single phase. Wait, did they
Come up here so the camera
It
hears.
would be 3 single phase lines, basically, so it's 3 times. And phasing being, you have a wave that's going up, and then you can have another wave that's out of phase with that one. It basically allows the power to all go, but you have individual waves. So you can have 3 waves going just to provide more power. And in detail, how it works in the electronics, I don't have the specifics there. There are some places where you can use just 2 legs of the 3-phase. But again, it's 3 single sets of power going in that you can then use more efficiently.
3
So-
alternate currents so that if one goes down, some things may still stay up.
So it's redundancy.
Well,
You know, You can
It's
have,
efficiencies.
right, but you can't, it's not necessarily that things can stay up. We have problems at the wastewater plant. If one phase goes down and the others don't, you could power multiple things, 1 phase for these, 1 phase here. So when we
Yes.
have 1 phase go down, some parts of the
That's what I
system go
meant,
down,
yeah.
but others stay up.
So what are some examples of why businesses would want this?
Again, their equipment runs better on 3-phase power.
It runs better, but it still runs
If you
without
have a
3-phase
high-
power.
Yeah, if you have a higher load need,
You usually have different equipment. You have, it either uses 3-phase power or it uses single-phase power. I don't
Okay,
know the specifics of the efficiencies or.
I think in summaries, it's more reliable and more efficient.
okay.
Have you talked to Neil in the market about their 3-phase? What he told me was they have older bakery equipment that they can't even find replacements for. It's only on single-phase power, and they need to. Their plan was to put in newer equipment that required 3-phase, but they couldn't do it.
I've heard that he at times had looked at doing that. I've heard also recently he wasn't interested in doing it necessarily if he has to pay even for his service connection might be too expensive. So it's hard to tell at any given time, right? I've heard back and forth.
Go ahead, trustee.
Since you just mentioned the service connection, do we have any idea what that might cost?
Not really, I'd have to check.
Okay.
I'm not gonna throw out a number.
Any other questions for Chair Kerr? This is good timing since budget's coming up. So thank you
Okay.
very, very
Thank
much.
you.
And thanks for your dedication and work. Ruby.
Thanks, Jim.
Glad to help out.
And look, we're getting you out before 9 o'clock.
I know, I'm impressed.
All right. Okay, next up, general business. Item 1 is resolution 2024-88. A resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado approving the First Amendment to the development agreement with Lyons Properties LLC. And Attorney Dittman, did you wanna take this?
Yeah. I'll briefly introduce this one. I think the applicant was probably gonna speak mostly on this, but as you know, in September, we, thought we had negotiated the development agreement with the developer for the Riverbend development. There was a bit of a chaotic kind of amendment during that meeting. And based on the minutes and the video, we thought we had captured what everyone had agreed upon, but the developer would like to request additional changes to meet their needs, and I'll let them explain that.
Okay,
Back again. Chris Lee, 629 First Avenue. Attorney Dittman was correct. We had a positive meeting, went through, and I did listen to the minutes from the meeting, and had missed what was proposed and what was voted on. Looking at 2.2A number 5, which states after the first dance ceremony or 8 o'clock, whichever occurs first, all outdoor music must be played acoustically without amplification. And the one we focused on back then was number 10, and it states neither amplified nor non-amplified brass horns, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, etc., or non-electronic drum sets can be used outside the property. And so after all the discussion on that evening, Attorney Dittman was putting number 10 together, and my memory is, and I think it's a very clear memory, that we were joking around, and I believe it was Trustee Daddy mentioned harp, and I think I turned around and looked at Andrew, and he mentioned flutes. So I think it was a mistake that Dittman did hear those conversations, but I don't think that was the intent of those conversations. And unfortunately, I did miss it when we voted, and he read 2.2A number 10. And when I went back and watched the video, the first discussion was about music. Then it went on to the spotlight, and I stopped listening the first time, and I did write a note to the town and to Victoria. And she said, but these are the town minutes. So then I went back and watched the video again. So there was a discussion on music, discussion on the spotlight, and then future discussion on 2.2A number 10, which did mention those. And unfortunately, I missed it, and I think we all missed it. And I don't think that was the intent of that vote, because clarinets, harps, flutes, and electronic drums, by definition, are acoustic instruments.
okay, I think we're all looking at we're looking at the documents right now. So,
Yeah, that was my understanding at the time. My understanding was the same as yours. I actually thought it was tongue in cheek, and so when it was mentioned, I just didn't challenge it. I'm not sure why, it was late, whatever, I just didn't challenge it, and as soon as I saw your letter, it's like, geez, I needed to have spoken up then, but my understanding was the same as yours. That those things did not need, should not have been in the agreement.
A question, those things are allowed now under the agreement for acoustic music, right?
Yeah, they always have been till 10 o'clock.
But I mean, the operations that have been occurring in the past years that have allowed non-acoustic music, these things would be allowed
Yes.
to have been used then. Okay.
The only things that have been banned in the past that are acoustic, drums, saxophone, trumpet, and trombone.
And to be clear, this language came directly from the farmettes. That's why it was in there from the beginning. And we just added flutes and harps, I think, and the added pieces.
So the only thing that we're changing here is removing the specificity of clarinets, harps, flutes, and electronic drum sets. That's the only thing that you're asking us to do.
The last sentence of number 10, yes, that's correct. And then at the end of the first sentence for number 10 is just with the exception of approved special events. If we were to get a world famous band, and they're an appropriate band to have within town, I would like to think that with an approved special event that they could play saxophone, trumpet, and trombone.
Mhm.
Like if there was
Yeah,
a jazz concert, yeah.
yeah.
And even the other night, I was listening to A Lodge, and it was a fantastic band, and it was pure drums and trumpet. And it's what is specifically banned on the property, which is a shame, but I think we can make the business work that way. But I'd hope that with the special event approval, we could bypass that.
Grant, let's go, let's go down.
Attorney Dittman, thank you.
Yeah, I think if we remove this section in X, I think we also need to specify how long acoustic music may be played for. It's kind of unclear, I think. It talks about how long amplified music can be played for. It talks about when one amplified microphone may be used, but there really is no time limitation on acoustic music. So I think we would need to add that somewhere. Would be my only other request if this section is removed.
Okay.
I don't want to go backwards, but this has got very complicated. I could state it very simply that amplified, non-amplified music can be played in the property until 8 o'clock. Excluding saxophone, trumpet, trombone, and drum sets. After 8 o'clock is acoustic music outside with one microphone, so long as you abide by a town noise ordinance. After 8 o'clock, as I said, those unamplified music allowed, then anytime indoors, any instrument is allowed, so long as you abide by town ordinance. So we have 3 pages, and that was all summarized in a couple of sentences, but I do not want to go backwards. And I don't understand when we have 2.2, A number 6, it states after the first dance ceremony or 8 p.m., whichever occurs first, all outdoor music must be played acoustically without amplification. It's there. And I think when we look back, that all music ceases outdoors at 10 o'clock anyway.
Yeah, in section B.I, it says after 10 p.m., no amplification should be permitted outdoors of any kind.
But there's
Right,
nothing
yeah.
that says how long acoustic music can be played. That's the problem.
Well, it says in 2.1, A6 is outdoor quiet hours shall be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So there's no music outdoors from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. It's already stated. During quiet hours, no amplification sound will be permitted outside except as provided for by this agreement. So all music has to cease outside at 10 o'clock based on 2.1A number 6. It's already there.
To me, quiet hours is all noise, regardless whether it's music or not. I think the easiest thing to do for a future board or future owners of this property is we said, clearly whether acoustic music is allowed till 10 or whatever hour. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay, I agree.
My impression, and I agree with you, Mr. Light, this has been way too confusing. I think for every single person in this room and on this Zoom. So
I sleep.
we appreciate you sticking around for this. And we really do want to get this agreement in place and done.
Yeah.
My impression was that all music outdoors was going to cease at 8 p.m. regardless of whether it was acoustic or not. And I'm curious to know if that is a warp in my memory or if others thought that too.
That's not my understanding.
Okay,
Yes, right.
okay,
You're saying, right? 8 p.m. or 10 p.m.?
Eight.
Oh, so you two agree.
For amplify.
Amplified eight.
Yeah.
Non-amplified.
It's always been
Okay.
acoustic till 10.
Okay, well, this is why I'm checking with my colleagues.
Yeah.
It's good.
Try not to panic.
No, I mean, if you look at the PUD too, it states that. So,
And that's
It's
incorrect.
always
The PUD currently says 8, and which is I think it's not a problem if this agreement's in place, but the PUD actually does currently say 8. So
Oh,
something like
no.
that'll need to be changed.
Oh my
That's where the confusion
I
lies.
mean, after the first
That must
dancer
be it.
ceremony at 8 p.m., whichever occurs first, all outdoor music must be played acoustically without amplification.
Okay,
So,
what's the staff thought on this, Victoria?
Again, I think going through all of the community comments, as long as amplified music ends after 8, and then non-amplified music can continue until 10, that was the understanding of staff.
Okay,
So it should be that simple, and in my simple opinion, but that should be how that code reads.
Could I just read, there's 2.1A4. It says no time restrictions are applied to indoor amplified sound pursuant to this agreement.
God. Indoor.
All music, whether amplified or not, shall not be permitted after 10 p.m. unless performed indoors and in compliance with the town noise ordinance.
Yeah.
So that one, unless I'm missing something else, seems to say, no, nothing is permitted after 10 p.m. unless performed indoors and in compliance with the town.
So
I
is that limit? Oh,
the
go ahead.
easiest
Go
thing to
ahead.
do, I think, was just amend 2.2A6 to say that acoustic music may be played until 10 p.m. And this,
okay,
and that would make it very clear to everyone. 'Cause
okay,
it doesn't say acoustic music anywhere. And when you have the complication of the amplified microphone, it creates this ambiguity.
Amplified microphone.
yeah, I get it.
you already have that in
Chris, is
B,
this limited
Yeah.
to 50
In
times?
B,
This
one.
is 50.
50 times a year?
All the other clauses above.
I mean, that's
Just
already
should
there.
that be there too then, so it's clear?
So, yeah.
So I mean, he's wanting to put it in A6 when it exists in B1.
So Attorney Jitman, if you can't hear what Mayor Pro Tem is saying, is that already exists in B1. And so she's curious about why we would add it.
B1 says that use of one amplified microphone shall be permitted outdoors until 10 p.m. Subject to the conditions of the section after 10 p.m., no amplification will be permitted outdoor of any kind. It doesn't say anything about acoustic music. It only says something about a microphone.
That's specific.
He just wants to clarify.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Fine.
okay.
Yep, you clarified that.
If we're on it, if you're in agreement, he just wants to clarify it all in one place.
Okay,
Wherever it goes, I just want to say somewhere that acoustic music is allowed till 10. It doesn't say that
Yeah.
anywhere directly in this agreement. You could infer that potentially, but it creates ambiguity for future parties to argue over.
I get it. That's why you're the attorney and we're not.
So we just want to change 2.2A number 6 at the end of that sentence,
Put acoustic maybe.
without
played till 10.
amplification until 10 p.m.
Yeah, acoustic music may be
50
played
times.
until 10 p.m. That's all I want to say. That's
okay,
intent of the
I'm good
words.
with that.
Sounds good.
Are we good
Then we
with
just
that?
Yes.
Change
Okay.
that
Do you
and
need to say up to 50 times per year? Is that clear from the other one?
it's already stated.
I know,
Yeah, where is that stated?
if he wants clarification.
It's under
That's
So
B6.
section 6.
So the 50 events will be permitted per calendar with a single outdoor amplified microphone between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m.
Doesn't say music, it just says amplified microphone.
Amplified microphone and acoustic music. So change
Oh.
B6 to include acoustic music as well.
Did you catch that, Brandon?
So in B1, you want to include acoustic music?
It needs to include it if you want to clarify, because right now it just says microphone.
Yeah,
On B6.
that's why I made it in B6. I included the change, but you can put it there too. That's fine.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Lee?
I'm just scared what's gonna come out tomorrow morning.
Are you gonna sign it tomorrow? Get it to us, Brandon.
So just to be clear, this is what I'm putting for B1. Use of one amplified microphone and acoustic music shall be permitted outdoors until 10 p.m. subject to the conditions of this section. After 10 p.m., no amplification or music of any kind, you're gonna have to add that too, shall be permitted outdoors.
Yes,
That's clear.
that is clear. Total of 50 events permitted per calendar year with a single. Yeah.
That's another area.
Are you gonna start
Camping and
Tom?
drum circles is elsewhere.
Start joking.
Trustee
about
Lowell
that.
is gonna start another time.
That would fall under our current noise.
We got in
ordinance.
trouble
do not
last
have
time
to
we
adjust
joked
that.
around.
I'm not
Let's
saying
not joke around. Okay,
10, what happens to 10?
So-
2.2A number 10.
So I mean, if it's up to the board what they want to do, but your proposal would be to add, unless approved by the town, neither amplified nor amplified brass horns, there's the list, or non-electronic drum sets can be used outside on the property, period. And then delete the next sentence. That's what I heard what the proposal was.
yes,
Sounds good. Yes, I agree.
yes,
So
okay,
we're only changing 2.2A 10 and B number 6.
A6.
B6.
Can you please read 6 one more time?
I didn't change 6, I changed B1.
So B1, okay, sorry.
So B1, use of one amplified microphone and acoustic music shall be permitted outdoors until 10 p.m., subject to the conditions of this section. After 10 p.m., no amplification or music of any kind shall be permitted outdoors.
Okay,
And the other section that was changed was A6 and 2.2. After the first dance ceremony or 8 p.m., whichever occurs first, all outdoor music must be played acoustically without amplification. Acoustic music may be played until 10 p.m. See section B1.
Agreed.
okay,
The other thing that probably needs to be changed is B6. They say a total of 50 events will be permitted with a single outdoor amplified microphone and acoustic music, I assume, or I mean, that's up to the board.
Yes, please.
What is
yeah,
this?
it's,
Yeah,
B6.
B6, where it talks about the 50 events. So just adding the acoustic music.
Yeah,
So, let me know when we're done.
Can I just hear, sorry, I
Yeah.
blanked out when you were reading. B1 again, use of one amplified microphone shall be permitted with acoustic music. Is that how it
Use
read?
of one, this is what I have down. Use of one amplified microphone and acoustic music shall be permitted outdoors until 10 p.m., subject to the conditions of this section. After 10 p.m., no amplification or music of any kind shall be permitted outdoors.
Okay,
I believe I read all 4 changes.
okay.
Yeah.
We all hope you feel the same way in the morning.
See what comes.
I need a motion.
So, yeah, but before we do that, I want to bring up, the PUD. So where, and I'm not sure where and how this might conflict with what's in the PUD, but Attorney Dittman, if it does, what's the best way to move forward? Either, I hate to think about reopening that PUD because it took 6 years.
We can do it as a minor amendment for an error.
There's no regulatory language in the PUD that was.
He's saying there is.
There is. I checked it and we did this.
So it can be done as an amendment to the PUD?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for now, that this agreement, it clarifies the intent of the PUD. So we're not gonna enforce the PUD, but at some point in time, as a housekeeping matter, we should clean that up.
Well, yeah, because I don't wanna saddle a future board with
Correct.
agreements that conflict.
I mean, is there a way to, in this, while we're amending this one, is there a way to say
No.
this supersedes?
No, well, I mean, you could say it supersedes the PUD where it conflicts, you could.
I mean, is that a way to do it with?
Yeah, can we add that language in that where this conflicts with the PUD, this agreement
Yep.
supersedes the PUD?
Yeah, let me see where best to put that.
This agreement.
And this won't require like, all it requires is an amendment, right? Like not new Mylars and that whole.
So what it would do is in 1.1D, it says this agreement does not modify the plan approval or approval of the PUDC overlay for the property except where this agreement conflicts, in which case this agreement shall control.
Okay. And then we'll put it on the long list of things to, clean up. Okay, so I do believe we need a motion.
I'll do it, not much.
I'm gonna check my phone and see if Sarah sent me a text.
No.
You have 30, you have about 20 seconds if you want to do that. Because
Finally.
I don't know.
we do like you, but we don't want to see you back here. No messages?
No
Okay. Trustee Roll?
I move to approve resolution 2024-88, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending the Riverbend Development Agreement, parenthetically resolution 2024-72.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Any additional discussion?
Nope.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you.
Goodbye, good luck, good digging.
And look, it's only 9:15, Chris.
It's getting darker there.
I know. Okay, next up, discussion direction regarding the Boulder County IGA process. We had a workshop on this earlier, where we talked about the following items, that we are in agreement, there are to be no executive sessions when we're discussing the content of the proposed IGA. We talked about looking for a March timeline to have the IGA completed, and so would be asking for an extension with Boulder County, perhaps with some buffer built in. We talked about having how to engage the public. So we talked about having public information session and a series of perhaps input sessions, neighborhood by neighborhood. We talked about having surveys, some online surveys for people to fill out. And we also discussed having myself and Mayor Pro Tem, along with staff as representatives. I think that's a good idea, actually, in case one of us can't make it, we have that continuity. So I would ask if the board would like to give direction to staff on those matters.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and just to clarify, the negotiations with Boulder County or the renewed negotiations would not commence until after we have had a workshop and a board meeting, both of which will be open to the public for this board to discuss what direction we want to give on the substantive items. Because we have not had that discussion yet.
We have not had that discussion yet, and however, staff will talk to Boulder County about what we just discussed here. But we haven't, because we haven't given staff direction yet in terms of the content of the IGA, they won't be discussing the content. I think that's good to have clear for the record, Trustee Browning. Okay, so
Thank you.
did you have something else on that?
There are just a couple of things that I wanted to discuss going forward. One of them is actually taking the time to review our actual housing plans here. How our goals and policies, actually, it's not this document. darn. It's actually this document here. Guiding Principle 5, providing support for all in an atmosphere of trust and cooperation. So it's actually page 53 through 56 of the Lions Thrive Plan. I don't know if that's what was handed to you. It is?
Yeah.
I see.
Well, and that's something that we'll discuss during the workshop when we
Okay.
talk about our goals.
Okay, so for now, do we need to, do you feel like it's necessary for us to create a housing task force, or do you think that this board will discuss this more in a workshop setting?
That's a good question. I think it might be beneficial for the whole board to have the discussion in a workshop and see where we land and see if we really need another task force.
Yep.
Unless you have a burning desire to be in another task force.
No, I just want to take a really good, since this is one of our top 3 priorities of this term, I just want us to be very in-depth about this. And I would really appreciate if everybody reviewed those housing goals and policies that our community already came up with over a 2-year process and that we adopted 18 months ago.
We'll make sure that it's in the packet for the
That would be
workshop.
great. That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say on that, the 2 prior board's resolutions dating back to, I think, 2017 and 18, they weren't done through a task force, they were done through board resolutions and discussions. And those also need to be in the materials, because if we're talking about altering or modifying or adding to our existing housing policies, those are the 2 policies that the Board of Trustees has actually adopted: a 10% local affordable housing goal and participating in the county-wide 12% affordable housing goal. But as we discussed at the workshop, there have been developments since then. That was before Proposition 123.
Mhm.
And information Dola's given us about what would qualify for Proposition 123 purposes, and before the Evans Street project, and the ADU world has changed a lot since then,
It
and which needs to be factored in, I think, to our housing policies. So those 2 prior Board of Trustees resolutions also are informative about where we are now.
I think, yeah, having the historical context is important. Okay.
As well as new state legislation.
Yes. Yep. Okay, Administrator Simonson, are you okay with all that?
Good.
Okay. Discussion direction regarding value of CBT shares and ability to sell shares.
Hello, Mayor and Trustees. So we have talked about this before, and you asked the Utility and Engineering Board to review and come up with what they thought was the market rate. So we presented that the UEB recommended a market rate of 56,000 per unit. With the discussion of the town selling units of CBT, it's definitely a larger conversation. I have talked with Longmont a bit about it. I have talked with Northern Water a bit about it, but I wanted to at least present what's in our current IGA contract. So I did include the one section of the code of the IGA, sorry, not the code, that says Lions shall not pledge, sell, convey, dedicate, encumber, or divest itself of any of Lions' water rights during the terms of this agreement.
That's pretty
Those
good.
were really the only 2 items to present on this.
Okay.
And that is as ironclad as it appears, correct?
That would be my understanding.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it just seems like, okay, that's not something we can consider.
Maybe.
Okay,
This particular language and the prospect of selling surplus CBT shares, if we ever determined that there was a surplus of shares, was discussed 3 or more years ago by the board, Mayor Rogan and I, and we've, Trustee Lowell were on. And the discussion at that time was, yes, we recognize what this language said. But the discussion was, if we got to the point where every lot in town that was subject to the having to reserve shares for it was built out. And we've got, let's just for purposes of discussion, so we got 10 shares that we're never gonna, we know we'll never have to dedicate to a particular lot. Would Longmont which has been quite reasonable over the years in making modifications to these agreements when we've sat down and set out our reasons for requesting them. Like 5 years ago, you couldn't have used Lake McIntosh here. The agreement wouldn't allow it. Now you can. Would Longmont take the position that, oops, sorry, Lions overestimated its number of CBT shares that would need it built out by 10, and the city of Longmont gets to grab the value from those extra 10 shares, which $600,000 or so, and keep it forever? Is that something Longmont would do? Or would Longmont sit down and discuss with us and say, hey, wait a minute, we know we shouldn't, it doesn't seem fair to hold 10 surplus shares captive forevermore. How can we modify this? So the discussion was had at that time is, should we discuss with Longmont this provision and what would happen if we got to the point that we had surplus shares? What could we do with them? But I don't, as far as I know, that discussion has never taken place.
I've talked to Longmont a little bit recently. I think part of the understanding is what we dedicate to Longmont is not what we use for water. As an example, this year Longmont used 255 units of CBT. If it came down to it and we did not have enough units because of a drought, they could require us to use all of our CBT because that's what they need to give to Northern Water. Regardless of if it's dedicated to them, they might need our whole water portfolio. Now, granted, you'd have to get to a very large drought. Right now, when I look at our portfolio, I think we're okay down to 4/10 of a share, but 4/10 of a unit. CBT works in units for whatever reason, but that's only one portion of our portfolio. Again, that's also using, like I talked about, we have water coming from our pipeline decree, which is a certain number of acre feet of water. We can also get the Button Rock water. Another consideration that Longmont would have is there is the next section in this part of the agreement that says Lions can use 40 acre feet of its Button Rock for the same pre-existing commitments that we have concerns about. So potentially, what's to stop Lions from saying, okay, let's sell all of our extra shares that we are not dedicating and start using our Button Rock instead? Well, that would be my concern if I was an attorney for Longmont. I'm trying to look at it as the other side, that I would say, okay, if we're allowing them to sell, they could sell all 18 shares that are not dedicated and start dedicating Button Rock water. But they don't want, there's concerns about doing that. I would explain a little bit more when we go into the, whether or not we should take cash in lieu for particular shares. I suppose I could do it now. I was trying to present that we're looking at the water portfolio, and the way I see it, we have enough water to take on 4 new single-family homes without having a dramatic impact on our water supply, which is different than selling off some of that water supply and reducing our entire water supply.
You know, the purpose that I had requested an agenda item on this about giving direction, I'd like to see happen what I kind of hope would happen when we talked about it several years ago, which is let's sit down with Longmont and see if we can come up with a solution to this issue of what do we do with our surplus shares, because it's potentially big value to our water fund. And Longmont may well take the position, nope, deal's a deal, we're never going to change it, but that's not been the way they've approached things in the past. And as you say, there's some, we might have some incentive to try to use Button Rock, but they might not want us to. So let's just talk to them and see what we can come up with in that respect.
So when you say surplus, you're meaning shares that we're not allocating that you're using?
Yeah, we haven't ever gone through that in detail, but it would be, we know of 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Lots, the pre-existing commitment lots that we have to save shares for. There's an issue about a couple out on Apple Valley with 1 or 2 shares. The UEB has recommended in the past, and I think wisely so, that we not take it down to the line, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. Some other old agreement could pop up. You might add a town building 10 years from now that you need a water share for, something like that. So you want to have something in reserve. How many surplus are there? You know, do we feel comfortable with? We haven't made that decision yet, but this is some information we would need maybe we never make that decision if the irrevocable agreement is, no matter how many surplus shares you may think you have, Longmont's got them, so we don't really have any surplus shares. But, I think that process needs to be followed through with full information about what Longmont would be willing to potentially let us do.
So I think we would need a request of some sort, what we would like. My
Yeah.
discussions with Longmont just now were, again, just with one per staff. And it's, staff can work together. I'm telling you why we don't think this is a great idea from some of the reasons they have. You can present this, that you would like staff to just take this to their utility board, who is also an advisory board, just as our utility board is. And then it would go to their town council. Or it can be just a document that's saying we would like to discuss with staff. And I think I would need something that says what specifically we would like to know. Because I've tried to present what I've said and it's not, so I'm gonna present it to Longmont and they've already presented back to me. So if you wanted to put something in writing that we want to give to Longmont to ask if we can modify the agreement.
Well, I think the first question is the agreement modifiable at all? Because if the answer to that is no, then it's a non-starter and you all don't have to spend any
We've
time.
amended it 3 times or something like that already.
And several
And we
times.
want to go to amend it for attainable housing and Lake McIntosh potentially. So
And they're
that's
open to
one
that.
request.
That would be a
and
good
are we
time.
going to, or are we going to
There's,
stifle that request with another request?
and there's another issue that I think we've mentioned already at our board meeting, which is attainable. I think it's been discussed, and Longmont's already said, yes, we're willing to do that, because I think the agreement right now just says affordable. It doesn't say attainable for Lake McIntosh shares.
Mhm.
But the other question is, what if you have a mixed development of part market rate and part affordable attainable? Use Tebow, the back Tebow property as an example, whether that'll ever happen or not, who knows? But let's say a developer comes along 10 years from now and says, I'd like to do a project with 80% market rate homes on it because that's where I'm gonna make my money. And I'm willing to do 20% attainable, affordable along with that. The agreement we have in Longmont right now says you can't use, Lake McIntosh shares for, market rate housing. So does that mean we have an 80%, 20% mix of shares, or does that mean we can't use Lake McIntosh shares at all because it includes some, the majority of its market rate housing? We need to discuss what happens.
Right,
It's not
I wanna keep us on track a little
I
bit
do,
here.
we're talking about things that we need to discuss with Longmont. I think that needs to
I
go
have
into the
that.
mix.
But are you wanting it
Ready
to
to
come,
go.
do you want to come up with the list of things we want to meet about with the UEB? Or?
No, with Longmont.
No, but who's drafting the list
Oh.
of questions? The
Oh.
staff
Yeah,
or
it
the
sounds like,
board or?
because it's sounding like it's a
Why-
longer,
Why
bigger
doesn't the
conversation.
staff draft a list of proposed questions with language covering the things we talked about? Bring it to the board for approval, because I think before you go to Longmont, you should say our board is interested in getting the answers to these questions, and not just staff. So if the staff could do a draft, I would say of what these questions are, then the board would authorize the staff to explore those with Longmont.
Do you want me being, do we want to ask them if they want to be involved or not? No, just
The
staff?
UEB.
Oh, what did they do next? They've discussed this to some extent.
I think let's ask them if they wanna be involved in
Okay.
reviewing the questions.
I'll ask Jim and
Yeah,
if he wants to put it on their next agenda. They meet every 2 weeks. They should be able to
okay,
do that. I'll ask Jim.
okay.
I know, but they're just gonna come back to me.
I know, but it's protocol to ask.
Yeah, we should.
Commission.
Yeah, okay. So the UEB recommended a market value of $56,000 per unit.
Yeah.
And does staff agree that that's accurate?
Right, my, recommendation had been gone up to 55,000 since we had the developers coming back. Again, my original was 50,000 based on seeing what I thought could be paid for. So I was at 55,000 as staff, and that was presented to the UAB also.
Okay. All right,
But the UEB recommended
56.
56,000.
okay. All right, thank you for that. Okay. So,
One bit of discussion or amplification on that before we move.
sure,
There were 5 UEB members there, a couple of them online, and it was kind of like back and forth discussions with individuals. Several of the UEB members, I think, got to the 56,000 because based on the materials that are in the packet about CBT prices, Aaron's survey, basically the water brokers of what they were asking for right now. Somewhere around 60,000 seemed to be what they were going for now through the water broker process. But if we had the ability to sell, we the town, shares at $60,000 and we hired a water broker to do that, the commission generally payable is 6%. That's $3,600 on 60,000. So we would net 56,400, and 56,000 is basically a rounding of that essentially. So that's where the 56,000 is really 60,000 less the standard commission.
thank you.
Well, plus the third said with recent transactions, you might be able to purchase units in the mid-50s. So I thought maybe
And
that's.
some of the if you're buying them, I could get you some in the 50s. So others were saying up to 63. So there's a range there.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then, staff is okay with this. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion direction on approving cash in lieu of 4 CBT units for property located in Lions Valley Park, filing number 8. So, the last time we talked about this, we asked staff to come back and, provide us with an estimate of what a share would cost. We've got 2 estimates now, one at 56, one at 55. The question before us is, well, and the applicant's here. Evening.
He's at 13.
Oh, I didn't see him up there. I was wondering who that was up there. I didn't make the connection. Thank you. So 2 questions then. Are we open to accepting cash in lieu? And if so, what price would we accept? And then if the applicant is okay with the price, that's great. And if the applicant's not okay with the price, then, just continue on as usual. So,
I
let's take,
did include one more sort of question as a matter of timing.
Go.
When you would accept that, because if you are going to accept the cash, but to be for any time standard is you're getting the water rights at the building permit
Mhm.
stage. If we're
Thank
just
you.
going to set a price for a future building permit, that may come sometime late in years down the line, is that what we want to do? Do you want to hold it for any future time, or is there some time that needs to be paid since we're doing the current market value?
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
If we're okay with the building permit, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that was noted.
All right. Okay, so let's take it from the top. Are we wanting to consider accepting cash in lieu?
I believe yes. But not at the time of the building, sooner rather than not, because we don't know when they might be applying for that, and at that point, it may be worth more than that. I mean, I would rather that we have a date on that.
Okay, and what timeframe would you think of?
I'd probably defer to staff on that.
I was going with 3 months. I think it's something that could be negotiated. That's
Okay, I was
in
thinking December
January.
31st, so, yeah. Okay, so 3 months is fine.
Is 3 months okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Attorney Dittman? Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to put out there a thought too. I mean, if in 3 months the developer pays them cash in lieu, let's say they don't pull a building permit for years, and someone has, basically has a right to develop that property at that price many years down the line. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a problem, but I just want to point that out as a potential issue.
Yeah, Thank you. Yeah, I think it's, it's a risk in a way that we take.
But I mean, there's a return on that too, that we
Yes.
immediately put 224 into the account.
And we get interest on it, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay,
Yes.
so we're 3 months.
Yep.
Is that 90 days? Okay. And now to the price, the recommendation from the UEB is $56,000 per unit. Is that the price that we're comfortable with?
224.
Oh, yeah, close to what you said.
Okay, so,
Let me make a comment for the record. I'm comfortable, I'm not sure. I'm conflicted on this. I'm ultimately come out that in this circumstance at this time, I think the UEB's recommendation at 56,000 is acceptable. I guess I put it that way. I think that there is a possibility we could get more than that if we negotiate appropriately with Longmont. I wish that had been done. I wish that we knew what our ability to sell surplus shares was, but we don't right now. I also just want to make a note for the historical record that the town of Lyons disposing whatever form of what are essentially now considered surplus shares, because we're not gonna, we'll have to encumber these, we can't use these anymore for other purposes, is a huge change historically from what the town of Lyons has done for more than 80 years. One of the reasons that sort of the whole process of selling surplus shares doesn't compute with Longmont and Northern Water and other people is towns just don't do that. Most towns are out there buying surplus shares, buying CPT shares wherever they can buy them. And the concept of a town getting so close to build out that it can determine, hey, we've got some extra shares, it's just mind boggling to some people in some other towns, but that's where Lyons is. And I want to give, for one thing, due credit to the many people who preceded us on boards of trustees and on town staffs that accumulated enough shares over the years at low prices compared to where we are now to take us through build out. That's a huge step. We're not out there like some of these other cities desperately trying to buy more CPT shares at $63,000 and $68,000, which some of them have done in recent years. That's because people in the past made careful plans on buying CPT shares with an eye toward the future. And part of that same policy for 80 years consistently has been, don't sell your shares. Hold on to your shares, because you can look at the chart of what CPT prices have done over the years, and they're the best investment this town has ever made in anything. And there are people, Nick Angelo mentioned being one of them, who say you should never sell these shares. I don't go that far. I think we are at a point now in Lyons history and development where we can see that we've got surplus shares, and that's a great thing to have. Because several years ago, we thought, until we recounted, that we were gonna be short of shares, and we were gonna be up there buying $60,000 to $70,000 shares, and that was a scary prospect. We potentially at that time had to fill the need for, I forget, 5, 6, something like that, pre-existing lots. We were gonna have to dip into a water fund that was already broke to do that, and it was terrifying. But we're in a good position now, thanks to all the planning and policies that have been done for the last 80 years in this town. And by this vote, we're changing that policy. And I don't take that duty lightly. That's a very serious reversal of 80 years of town policy that has served this town well. On the other hand, I think as a trustee, I have a fiduciary duty to realize fair market value for the town's assets if they'll benefit something like the water fund. And I think based on the reasoning that shares are about 60,000 now, and we pay a commission of 3,600 if we were in a position to sell them, that this is pretty close to market value. And I'll point out for the record, this is greatly increased if we end up doing this cash in lieu from these particular developers from where things started 3 years ago when they wanted to use like McIntosh shares, and we said no. And they came back and wanted to pay about 39,000 a share, and we said no. And they came back a few weeks ago and wanted to pay $50,000 a share, and we said, we're not sure that's market value. I think we've done our duty of getting fair market value for our shares. And therefore I'm gonna be, I'm supporting this, but I realize that we're making a fundamental change in a longstanding town policy. But I think it's for the benefit of our ratepayers, and that's why I'm gonna do it.
Thank you. Okay. And you know, so the policy was set in the 1940s. I think it's a good thing that we're taking a look at it. Would you like to respond? This doesn't require a vote. It's a discussion direction item, so we won't take a formal vote on it. But
Consent next.
yeah, it would be on consent next time, but I wanted to know if there's anything you wanted to respond to.
Yep, I think, Keith, are you there too?
Looks like he is.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, Dave Whitcomb, 812 Mountain View Drive. Let me ask one clarification point here. So it says here that in your Reliance Municipal Code, that water dedication is prior to annexation or prior to a building permit. When we heard last time, it was consensus that if this was done, we'd be paying at time of building permit. So that has changed,
It sounds like that, yeah.
okay? I mean, that's the reason we didn't make a deal 3 weeks ago, because we were told it was gonna be at the time of building permit
That's the reason you didn't make a deal 3 weeks ago?
with just another buyer, another seller rather.
That one I don't know was specifically said anywhere. It may have been inferred, but I wasn't.
So if your municipal code says time of building permit, then why are you not following that?
Because they're making that. It also says we're not gonna do this.
Yeah. This
Are
is
are you looking to pull a building permit tomorrow? I mean, we would happily, I think, accept it then. I think the issue is you can't get this kind of consideration and sit on it forever. And so we're, giving you time to pull your building permit essentially.
Well, it was the same deal that was made to Markel. You didn't know how fast he was gonna sell and absorb his lots.
But he just brought share.
He didn't break cash in lieu
He's
either.
brought shares.
Would you be, oh,
Yeah, would you be open to something more like 6 months?
Maybe open to something. So even if we said go today, it's gonna, by the time you get the northern water and they get the board approval, we wouldn't be transferring anything probably until January. So if we did something in January and then before the end of 2025. So you knew by the end of next year, you had your cash in lieu. And I can't speak for Keith.
they don't have to bring a share. They're
If
you
accepting
do-
cash in lieu of it, a share.
Right,
You're saying if you had to go, you would already be, it would take until January.
if you
they
had
were
to go.
getting shares.
right. So we did something by January of 2025 and by December of 2025.
So you're asking for a year, essentially.
A year for the second half. So 2 shares in January, the other 2 shares in December.
So cash in lieu for 2 shares in January and cash in lieu for 2 shares in December.
Yes.
How about the last 2 shares within a year of
End of October.
the end of October,
So
a year
you're
from now. So
That's
because
the-
otherwise
It's just,
we're taking
So,
a risk with share prices for more than a year and
but there's not a vote tonight. So what's the process moving forward?
They're discussing and will direct staff to draft the resolution to put on consent next time.
Okay. So then if it's on consent in 2 weeks, then when would it be payable?
What they're saying is, you were saying 2 by January of 2025, and they're saying 2 shares by the end of the water year, which is October 31st, 2025.
And then 12 months from then.
The first two, You were saying the first two in January of 2025.
Yes,
And 2 in October.
Before October 31.
Keith?
I gotta say, this thing has sort of morphed a little bit from the original when I raised the issue and asked if at the time I was involved in negotiations to buy 2 shares for my 2 lots that remain that have water dedication. 50,000 is what we paid per share. We're able to do that without a water broker. We're brokers ourselves. We're not going to go through a water broker, but we can go direct to the farmer. And at the time, we had, offers we were negotiating for $50,000, and that's really where we see the market. I'm not interested, quite frankly, in paying $56,000 for a share when I can buy it for 50. I was thinking I'd rather give the money to the town of Lyons if it's going to be $50,000, $100,000 to Lyons than to a farmer. If you're interested in that deal, otherwise I'm just gonna, I've been able to do it before and I'll do it again. I'm confident. I'll just get it for 50,000 each and I'll dedicate it at permit.
okay,
Shares.
Good.
yeah, well, if that's the case, I wouldn't blame you, I would probably do the same thing, and, if you change your minds, you just let us know.
No hard feelings or anything.
No hard feelings,
Opportunity and 50,000 what we're getting. So
no hard feelings at all, worthwhile conversation, and, you let us know if anything changes.
okay. Thank you, Mayor and the board.
All right,
Okay, well, I want to point out that, Keith and I are not partners in this, so, we bought the 8 lots from Keith Bell, and then after we purchased the 8 lots, we split those up for each to our respective companies, so we can make decisions independently of what we want to do.
Okay.
So if I can think about it for a few days, get with you, and then,
you betcha,
okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
sure.
So have you already, so you each have 4 lots.
Yes,
Have you already purchased water shares for 2 of your lots?
yes.
So if we're discussing independently with you and Keith aside,
It's 2.
we would only be talking about
2.
cash in lieu of 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
unless,
Yeah, he's his own boss. Yeah.
so,
Okay.
I've lived here 26 years, so
Yeah.
I'm a little more vested here than Keith is. So I respect Keith and he can do what he wants. So you think about what I want to do.
You betcha.
So from there.
Okay,
All right.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
very much.
thank you.
Thank you. So,
Okay,
any changes if I do get a call in the next few days from one of them that they want to do this and I want to prepare this as a resolution for your next meeting? Right now, any changes to what you said? Are you open to January 25th and October 31st?
yeah, I think
One
that's
share
fine,
each, okay.
Yeah.
And, just have to have a question on those. Okay,
okay. All
and this
right.
offer stands for how long? Just now?
We'll say 2 weeks,
Yeah, till the next meeting.
until our next board meeting. And that gives you some more time to think about it.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Next up, discussion direction on CDOT speed study on portion of Highway 36. This is very exciting. We asked staff to reach out to CDOT when we heard that they had a new process, and staff did, and now we have more information. Mr. Simonson, do you want to take this?
Sure. We have been in discussions with CDOT. They are open to accepting an application for Lyons to have a speed study under the new methodology, which includes many more factors other than the 85th percentile of the existing speed. So they have sent us a in agreement that if the board's interested, I wanted you to see the contract if you're interested in doing so. They had asked me to sign it and I said I was not comfortable unless I had a board action to do so. Because as in the previous studies, whatever the outcome is, you agreed that you will implement. So I just want to make sure that you've all had a chance to review those terms, what they're going to be weighting this study on. And with the understanding that we will support and enforce it with whatever they decide. So I just needed, I needed a direction from you guys on whether or not to apply.
I certainly say yes, and I also understand why you would not want to sign that on.
Well, yeah. And why I said no, the entire board needs to talk about this.
Because the current speed limit is 50, is that correct?
At that point, yeah. Goes 35.
And we're thinking maybe it could come
35,
down to
40,
35
50. No, I mean, anything under
or
50.
40, anything under 50, like, could it possibly go over 50? I mean, there's no way.
It could, anything could happen.
That's the risk.
And this was my question is, can we request when the speed study is done?
That is one of my questions as well, because you don't want it to occur when traffic's backed up. But you also don't want it to occur in November when very few cars are coming. So.
And I think we do want it to occur during school drop off and pickup times.
Well, I think it'll be more than one time. I think there'll be a
They'll be
study.
there for a while.
But they did not give me a time frame. They just said that they're open and willing to accept our application immediately if we're ready to get started.
Well, it's now a good time of year. I mean,
I don't know how long I don't know what that really
Yeah.
means. They're putting people in order, I think, of studies.
so I
I'm
don't,
happy to discuss those things with them.
yeah, I think before, if the board directs you to sign a letter, I think before signing a letter, we should find out more about the timing.
Well, according to what the sergeant said tonight, it sounds like they're still able to somehow go 15 or more over.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it would be good to understand the new algorithm or methodology. I've read about it,
Uh-huh.
but
Well, this
how do
is
they
still,
weight that? I mean,
well, this is still somewhat, this is new.
it's new, yeah, so it'd be interesting to hear more about what other, because if they look at Rex, for instance, which we know there's been plenty,
Mhm.
but if they only weight that like 3% of the overall impact, then, or if it's 20% or 30%, then it would.
Or we
certainly argue
actually,
for a
when
lower.
you look at the number of cars we have, I don't think it is a very high number compared to other places. In that stretch.
Can we
There's
ask,
always a couple of some out of 400,000.
can we ask them how they weigh the different
Sure.
factors?
Okay.
And then, coinciding with this is the, survey that the town put out about pedestrian safety.
Mhm.
Can we somehow include that information for CDOT?
That and the safe streets for all,
Yeah,
that one, yes.
yeah.
Mhm. They said they would consider surveys. It used to be based on just this 85th percentile of what cars are going. If they're gonna add in numbers of access points in a certain distance, collisions, types of businesses, types of traffic turning, I think it can only stay the same or go down. I
Yeah,
don't.
that's the thing.
I
don't
cannot
see
imagine
any
them
time
raising it.
It would go up.
And there may be a reason to do it sooner rather than later, before the Circle K closes, because that's gonna
Yeah.
add to traffic.
Mhm.
That things might look different if that closed and they controlled access points. So I think
I
there's a
think
benefit
people
to
would go
doing it
faster.
now.
Yeah.
Well, I do too.
Well, I wonder if they take into account wildlife as well.
I think that's on there.
I think it's important that they run their survey on a
summer Saturday as well. If not, and not just for the Rocky Mountain Park traffic, but also for the number of bicyclists that are running up and down that very dangerous section.
Do they track bicyclists?
I think so.
That's
They'll
great.
look at our Vision Zero numbers, I'm sure.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, because if you look at bicyclists, they're also in that section where it's 50, going to have to note that there's a very frightening stretch where there's no bike lane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a list of questions for them. How about if, after talking to them, if it sounds like they're willing to work with us on all of these things, I draft. I had asked for this 2 weeks because they had sent it the day after our other meeting and thought I would just sign it because we're the ones who requested.
Yeah, well, and I would go so far as to say is if you ask those questions and you're satisfied with those answers,
Mhm.
go ahead and sign it. That would be my direction.
I agree.
Okay.
It doesn't.
And that there's some wiggle room if we have questions afterwards to still discuss.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, and I would love to know, and assuming that that's the case, I would love to know the time frame from them.
Uh-huh.
And then also, what's the, once they do their speed study and they say, okay, you should lower the speed limit to 35 here. Like, what's the process for actually doing that?
They will do it.
They
It's
will
their
do it,
road.
and
It's
they
their
will
road.
put up the signs and. Okay, our community will be thrilled.
Yeah.
If that happens, okay. Clear?
I think so. I think the only thing that might, not hinder, but alter it all would be is if, they're doing this at the same time they're doing the state streets for all.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting if they come out with 2 different recommendations.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
You know, if one says, put a curb sign, stop ahead, and the other one,
Doesn't then who you go with?
yeah, how does that work? I'll ask them.
Yeah,
Okay. Safe streets for all results. Okay.
yeah. Okay, all right, we'll move on to trustee reports then. Trustee Hamrick? Like a vacation report?
Yeah, my mind's still on vacation. There's nothing to report. The next SFC meeting is,
This week,
I thought this week, yeah, this Thursday, so,
I put a calendar in your packets.
okay.
Thank you.
Nothing to report.
All right. Trustee Dati?
Yes, I have a few things here. One of them, I gave you a printout here on the, on our response to the regional working group on homelessness.
Yeah.
So I've attended a session in August, and you attended a session in September.
Yes.
And neither of us are able to attend the next session, October 16th. So what I'm planning on doing is responding by email. If you can just take a look at this and just give me a nod whether you agree here with the draft language of the why statement. And I'll just read it out here. It says, our work on homelessness is about helping real people through compassion, support systems, and social justice. And the second part of this is what actions would we wish to take to support the agreements we've made here? And this is again, a regional approach. This isn't a Lions approach, it's a Boulder County approach. So what they're recommending after those first few sessions was, 1, advocate for funding at local, state, and federal level. 2, support the creation of affordable housing to address homelessness. And 3, provide supportive services to improve housing stability and decrease returns to homelessness. So I'm just looking for a nod. If you all feel good with these actions and this why statement, I'm gonna go ahead and email them that the town of Lyons is in agreement with what they've come up with so far. Okay, great, thank you. Second, the Housing and Human Services Commission will meet on Monday, October 14th at 4:30 p.m. The Executive Director of Boulder County Housing Authority, Susanna Lopez, will be there to discuss how we can partner. It's interesting, we just talked about providing supportive services to improve housing stability. And this would be an important service. And this is my second term as liaison to the Housing and Human Services Commission. I have yet to meet the Boulder County Housing Authority or really understand how they can help us. So I was really looking forward to being at that meeting. Unfortunately, I will not be there because it's my daughter's graduation ceremony that day in Amsterdam. And so Administrator Simonson has accepted to attend, and Town Planner Bowen, I believe, as well.
Yes.
So I think and I've already sent a list of questions that I had for her. One of the other things that I would like to put on the agenda, that maybe the next agenda, I don't think we have time at this agenda, but maybe the November agenda. I realized as I was going around in circles around how to reach our housing goals and why it really never appeared on our agenda with the Housing and Human Services Commission, I realized when I looked at the Lions Municipal Code that there's actually nothing here in their mandate that mentions housing.
They changed their name.
So what happened in 2019, we found the, minutes to the meetings where Trustee Miller actually asked to change the name from Human Services and Aging Commission to Housing and Human Services Commission, but they didn't actually change the mandate to reflect that housing quotient. So for them to actually look at, how to meet our goals and policies in the comp plan, for example, it's not even in their mandate. So I would like to ask the board to direct the Housing and Human Services Commission to review their, I guess it's their responsibilities.
Yeah, and I think the way that that would work is, so they would do that, and then this would be a change to the code. So it would be an ordinance, correct?
It's a whole ordinance, and the entire ordinance involves all the boards and commissions. So when they did this last time in 2019, 18,
2019.
they all updated their information.
It's a big lift.
It is a big lift. But if there's anything in the general standards that we want to address, that'd be a good time to do it as well. But otherwise, you can certainly bring back recommendations for the.
Yeah.
So I would just love for this to reflect what, we decided on when we end up Lions the right plan, at least that there's something there about housing. So I'm gonna ask them to put that on their agenda so they can see how that can be added. Thank you. And then finally, the Arts and Humanities Commission will be meeting tomorrow at 4:30, and Rogan has agreed to attend. Thank you so much for that. As you may or may not know, the next this quarter for Library Art Show and Town Hall Art Show is already up, it looks like. For this quarter is Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. at the library. And I'm really happy to see that the Lions Community Foundation has increased their grants for the Creative Outlets Program and the Hearts of Lions Program for a total of $7,349. So that's really cool, because yesterday we literally took about 15 people around to visit our public art sculptures during the first Sunday in Lions. And it's really, really cool for them to be impressed with how much public art we have in our town. And we had artists there to explain their artwork as well, which was really cool. And that's how I was able to speak to John King, and Mrs. Christine Knapp was here to speak about Laverne's sculpture. So it's really cool to see how excited people get about public art, and it's great that we have a partner here with LCF who helps subsidize these programs.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, on September 17th, the Ecology Advisory Board met. Dave Cosgrove was in on the Zoom, and turns out that our concerns about use of the herbicides along the St. Vrain Trail extension really was a lot to do about nothing, because they were able to successfully remove all those weeds mechanically, so they never actually had to spray it. So that's good news. The other subject that came up was Greenwood Fairfax and Rob Jones were there, and they were talking about Siberian elms. It's our primary invasive species here in Lyons. And I gotta tell you, I'm a pilgrim here. I didn't know. And only when it was explained to me did I begin to notice the abundance of these.
Oh, yeah.
These things. Yeah.
Trash.
Dave basically says they take care of them for utilities purposes, but the thrust of it was, you gotta get to the homeowners, you gotta have some education about, get rid of the little seedlings that are coming up from all the seeds that grow. So that was one of the focus of the meetings. Mark and I met for the fire mitigation task force. We met with Andrew Bowen. I took as my charge, one of the things to do, and I did it today, was to meet with Boulder County Parks and Open Space and talk to their, fire mitigation people about what the plans they might have for mitigation around lions, and we primarily focused on the Mealy Street neighborhood there. It was kind of interesting to hear their thoughts on it. We all remember the great helicopter controversy, the spraying of the herbicides. That was primarily to kill the cheatgrass, which their stance is that the cheatgrass is one of the #1 fire fuels when it gets going. So they were only able to accomplish half of the mitigation up in the Mealy neighborhood. They need to do the second part of that. They have another parcel up there, the parcel that runs up to the Golden Eagles nests up there. So they volunteered to let me come along and see what's going on up there. I invited Mark and any of you other trustees that want to accompany us up there to see exactly what the danger is up there and how it can be mitigated for that neighborhood. The other thing was kind of exciting. On September 27th, the St. Vrain Left-Hand Watershed Conservation District and the Highland Ditch collaborated in a trout rescue. I went over there and I covered it for the Redstone Review, and I was absolutely aghast at the number of trout that are entrained when Highland closes their head gate. They rescued 222 trout out of there.
Wow.
And I'm talking, there's some big guys too. Now, you think about this, every year when the growing season is over and the head gates get closed, those fish die. They either die from the dried up pools there, or they become easy prey for the herons and the raccoons and whatnot. So St. Vrain Left-Hand Watershed is looking to move this pilot project, they call it a pilot project, out to some of the other ditch companies and possibly spread it statewide. So as a river guy and a fisherman, I thought it was very exciting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So you put them back in the,
They put them back in, they took them out of the ditch and they ran them back up and they put them in that stretch from above the dam to the first kayak structure.
just right there, November home.
Yeah,
Very
right, but then, of course, 2 days later, Highland opened their, what they call their sand trap, that's that side sluice way that they have. So now, as you can see, the water is diminished about 50% there. Well, you know, some of them were still there, but a lot of them went downstream, but it's all for the ecological health of the river, so it doesn't matter.
Well, good stuff, good stuff. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, a lot of problems with the Historic Preservation Committee not wanting to take on projects, not really caring about their work. No, it's just wonderful to see them really
Yeah,
coming into their sense of who they are and what they want to do. And Sarah's been wonderful, and the whole group. It's like, whoa, this really has just been great. It's been a real marvelous transition there, and very happy about it. That's all I have.
Let's see, the EDC met on the morning of September 18th. They are working on a proposed recommendation to the board, sometime to be a future help on a local purchasing policy, with reference to local businesses. There's a discussion about three-phase power as a potential economic benefit to downtown, but they don't have a specific recommendation at this point. And let's see, they expressed concerns about CDOT's extraction of rent from businesses on Main Street. And then we walked around with the Main Street Colorado people, did a tour of downtown. We paid our respects to Laverne, and then we made a few blocks. And the Main Street Colorado people expressed their concerns about CDOT asking for rent for places that hadn't asked for years and years and years, and they weren't familiar with that being done in other places either. And then on the afternoon, same day, September 18th, UED met. And let's see, Aaron mentioned the possibility of a potentially expensive water line repair out near Planet Bluegrass. Hopefully not under the road, don't know, you know, that's, could be a budget item. Let's see, as we heard, they discussed value of cash in lieu, values of shares and fair market value of water shares. They're progressing on time of use electric rates that we will see a presentation at some point on, and all I can say is if you think we've had some complicated things come before us in the past, where do you see that? But Chairman Kerr he's busy these days. He's first going to sit down with the EDC and discuss time of use rates and how that may affect local businesses.
Dolores, the audio went out. The video did too, but I'm more concerned about the audio.
So that's wonderful news. I think that's gonna be super duper fun. Also the heart behind the dynamite shack that Trustee Browning and I took a photo in yesterday. I had no idea, but the town paid for that. So the town paid the artists to do that. I had no idea that was in the works, and that is such a cool thing, and I hope there's a plan for protecting it from the elements, or I don't know what that plan is, but I hope there is one. Because it's very cool. It's LAHC. Is it who's responsible?
I never heard of it. They never talked about the LEHC actually.
I think Kim.
The liaison is Kim.
For the record, Jacob and Ann did it, and Jen and Ann Hall. They did a great job. They're really so talented.
So just so before like it starts raining or snowing, I just want to make sure we say that it's pretty cool. So a couple other things. I met with a delegation from Kosovo, as part of a Rotary International Cultural Exchange. It's really interesting to know that they have the same kinds of challenges funding infrastructure projects. And also, it was interesting to know that Kosovo's #1 export is in Trustees. Yes. I know. I went to Metro Mayor's Caucus, couple of interesting things there. Aurora is running a bill, they're getting their legislators to run a bill to enforce license plate registration. So we talked earlier about why do you need a law to enforce a law, but apparently you do. And so we can, if that passes the legislature, that's something to look at adding to our code apparently. Connect for Health Colorado gave us a presentation at Metro Mayor's Caucus. And they talked about their different enrollment centers. And I spoke to them about doing an enrollment event here in Lyons. So they kind of would do a roadshow and come up and people could sign up for health insurance, learn more from brokers, just kind of easier face to face. So Housing and Human Services would be interested in that. As I already said.
I sent it.
And I think that is it for now. Janice Marchman, Senator Marchman's going to be here on Wednesday afternoon to meet with me and Neil Sullivan when we talk about the CDOT right away. I'm going to see if she'll stay for that urge. Okay. All right, can we have a summary of action items, please?
Yes, I've got, starting with the workshop, you would like no executive sessions for the IGA. You'd like a potential IGA wrap-up date of February or March. You would like to see public engagement to include surveys, smaller group input sessions, and staff is to draft potential survey questions for review. Next, you're looking for an estimate on odor control repairs at the wastewater treatment facility. The board would like to see a monthly utility status report going forward. I'm to distribute the HPC documents that Sarah left with me to the board. Staff is to email Mr. Capps regarding tree species and planting timing guidelines. And Mr. Capps is to follow up with trustee Browning with the approximate number of those on the waiting list. Ordinances 1167, 1168, and 1169 were moved to a date certain of November 4th. Staff is to draft a potential list of items that they would like to modify in the Longmont Water Agreement. The cash in lieu offer extended to Mr. Wickham tonight is on the floor until the next meeting. Next, I have the board would like to know when CDOT would conduct the speed study and their new methodology. If Administrator Simonson is satisfied with the answer, she should sign the letter and move forward with it. There was a November agenda request to ask the HHSC to review their requirements and what they can do, and then we can update the code to reflect the housing goals for them. And I think that's it, unless I missed anything.
Yeah, that's cool. I had a couple more, ask Boulder County what their process is gonna be regarding getting input from residents outside the town limits. Make sure we inform trustee Williams as well on the meeting dates when those come in. And then I had one more, I'm gonna put something on the calendar to follow up with Mr. Capps in a few months. If we don't hear from him before. And then, also asked to let the Board of Trustees know about the wait list at Summit. You-
Okay. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't have it, okay. I'm trying to read what she's reading here. Elm Tree Education, but that'll be you guys. Have HHSC draft changes, recommended changes, supporting commissioners. And then check on the heart, the Dynamite Shack thing, how that will be.
How to save it from the elements, yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I already sent in the changes to the development
We
agreement.
can't hear you. Oh,
If you can't hear me, I typed it out.
thanks, Brandon. We're all wrapped up.
All right, thank you.